As someone who goes to the theater every single week, I've been to some theaters in London more than I dare to admit. And in this video, I'm going to share my top 10 favorites and why you should visit them if you're after a cultural fix or simply good entertainment. Let's start. Well, this is the list of my top 10. I will talk about them in no particular order. These are just theaters that really impress me with both productions and architecture, just the way that I feel when I go see shows in there. So let's first talk about London Palladium, which is one of the theaters that I have the freshest memories from because I went to see Evita twice there, and this is one of my favorite shows that I've seen this year. So there might be a slight coincidence there, but I remember every time I go to see a show in this theater, I feel so connected to the old rich history of London theater. The lights in the theater inside are always slightly dimmed, and just the colors of it feel very deep and rich. And from the seats that I've had, I always had a decent view both in stores and in Grand Circle. And it's just all these different things contributed to me really liking going to this theater and recommending it to my friends when they're wondering which theater they should go and check out. London Palladium has a really rich history because it opened in 1910 and it was designed by the celebrated theater architect Frank Matcham. The capacity of the venue is over 2,000, so London Palladium normally hosts big shows and is very well known for pantomime, which happens every Christmas. But then throughout the history, London Palladium has been known as a place for comedy gigs and concerts, and the Royal Variety Performance, which was hosted the most in London Palladium. So London Palladium received nods from all different places to cement its place as one of the most attractive theaters in London. And if you happen to be in London before the 6th of September 2025, then make sure to go and check out Rachel Zegler's Outside of the Theater performance of Don't Cry For Me Argentina, which has taken the theater world by storm. She does that around 9 p.m. every night of the performance in the evening, and then probably around 4-ish on a matinee performance, and it's totally worth seeing. So check it out if you happen to pass by London Palladium. My second favorite theater in London is Theatre Royal Drury Lane. This is one of the oldest theaters in London, and while the site of the theater has been modified multiple times for various reasons, theater existed on this particular location since the 17th century. So there is so much history rooted in Theatre Royal Drury Lane, but that's not the only reason why I'm really into this theater. Every time I go to see a show there, it is just so beautiful. This is one of those theaters that has so much space, and when you enter, you see beautiful arches, beautiful stairs that take you up to like Grand Circle and Royal Circle and balcony. It is just such a big theater, and this is something to be wary of in a sense that if you're going to see a show in Theatre Royal Drury Lane, then you need to be careful where you sit, just because sometimes you can feel like you're really far removed from the stage. And this happened to me when I went to see The Tempest. I was all the way at the balcony, and that felt a little bit far away just because of how big the theater is. But at the same time, the stage is also really big, and it can really accommodate a lot of flexibility and different ways to deliver a show, which Jamie Lloyd definitely used very well for Much Ado About Nothing and Tempest when it comes to the set design. And now you can see Hercules there, which is another really big and energetic show. This theater carries a lot of history, so if you are just passing by, even if you're not seeing show, then definitely check out Theatre Royal Drury Lane because it is one of the biggest landmarks of theater in London. For the next one, we're going to move across the river to the South Bank area, and we're going to talk about Old Vic and Young Vic. These are two separate theaters, but they're very much connected. The first of the two that opened in London was obviously Old Vic, which opened at the beginning of the 19th century, and this is a really beautiful theater. Every time I see a show here, and last year this was my most visited theater, I am impressed by how it looks. It's such a beautiful space that doesn't feel so big, yet it feels very cozy and beautiful and bright inside. And there's a nice blend between old and new because the bars in the theater are having a bit of a newer edge, but the inside of the theater then looks very glam with a chandelier and beautiful red velvet seats. So all of this adds to that feel that Old Vic can make you experience. Young Vic Theatre is much younger than the Old Vic, and it opened in 1970, and the main reason for it was for younger generations to attend theater at a cheaper price. But these days it operates very much as its own theater. It has its own productions. It still has obviously connections to its cause and why it has come about. But I think that the theater really lives and breathes that community feel, feel, and you can experience this when you enter. There is a lot of room for you to sit and have some food, and there's a lovely bar area, and the stage feels very communal and ready to embrace whatever production is in front of you. And I personally have seen a couple of productions at the Young Vic and loved it. It is a completely different feel to seeing a show at the Old Vic, and they're literally maybe 5 minutes apart down the road. So it's a great contrasting moment, but then at the same time, it is incredible that both of these amazing theaters are under the same institution and that they are not in the West End, and yet they're producing some really fantastic work and a lot of great transfers that have made their way to the West End too. We're gonna stay for a little bit longer on the south side of the river and talk about the National Theatre, because there is no visit to London to experience theatre without visiting this really important institution for the British theatre, but also a renowned institution internationally. I was actually very surprised to find out that the National Theatre, as we know today, opened in 1963, especially when you compare it to the other theatres I talked about in this video. All of them have started in 17th, 18th, 19th century, whereas like this is pretty much the latter end of the 20th century. And it was founded by Laurence Olivier, who was its first artistic director. And as they say on the website, the idea for the National Theatre was a long time in the making, and there's a rich history of how this came about, because the project was repeatedly delayed by funding issues, political debates, and the two world wars. But it was basically an idea that was a century-long movement, and it was initially imagined as a house for Shakespeare and high-quality drama. The first company of the National Theatre rehearsed and performed at the Old Vic while the current building was being developed. The National Theatre has 3 theatres within its walls, and these are Olivier with a capacity of just over 1,000, Littleton with 890 capacity, and Dorfman with about 400 capacity. And it is definitely one of those places that lives and breathes theatre in every single way. This is not just a place where people go to see shows, but this is also where people come and talk about theatre. There is a nice bar that is called the Understudy. There are plenty of spaces for you just to chill and work from there, or generally just absorb the creativity that is in the building. And while the building itself doesn't look as royal as many of the other old theatres in London, it has so much soul, and you can sense how big of an institution it is because of the names that are appearing in these theatres, the amazing innovative work that is being played in these theatres, and also how many of the National Theatre productions find acclaim internationally and also are transferred to the West End. So the National Theatre is a must-visit spot for every theatre lover in London, not just to see a show, but just simply to be in the space that is so culturally renowned. And while we're talking about national treasures, I have to talk about another theatre that is on South Bank, and that is Shakespeare's Globe. This is one of those things that a lot of people from all around the world come to see in London. Shakespeare's theatre is not just another theatre, it is very much a replica of the theatre that existed around a similar area where Shakespeare performed and created and put on shows. And while you can often see Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Othello, Midsummer's Night Dream, and other popular Shakespeare's plays, I guarantee you that it will always be a slightly different version of it and a different take on it that will help you understand the show in a completely different way. The most recognizable feature of this theatre is the circular shape, or also known as a wooden O, which allows for 360-degree view of the stage. It allows for actors to interact with the audiences in a very organic way. A lot of the times when I've seen shows in the Globe, there would be actors who would run through the audience to exit the stage or just to engage, or there would be like some fighting scenes that would happen in front of you. And all of this really contributes to that Elizabethan feel of the theatre, which is very old and also very traditional for the UK. So if you're looking for a theatre where you can definitely live and breathe the spirit of the country and be connected to its more historical reference in this form, then I think Shakespeare's Globe is a must-see. The best thing about Shakespeare's Globe is that you can get on-the-day tickets, which are between £7 to £10, and then these are the standing tickets. You can obviously buy the ones where you can sit down, and you will be in this like covered area of the theatre with the seats, but a lot of the times people are standing and enjoying the show, and sometimes when it rains, it's a completely different feel, but that's all part of the journey and of the fun. And yes, I think this is one of the best theatres to visit in London if you are up for an adventure. Let's talk another open air theatre which I absolutely love, and that is Regent's Park Open Air Theatre at obviously Regent's Park. This is a theatre that is not in the West End, but is very much renowned for amazing productions. And the thing about this theatre is that it's only open throughout summer, so mainly from June until the end of September. Depends on the production, sometimes maybe even May, and obviously depends on the weather. But this theater has some magic going on, because every time I go there, I'm more and more impressed by what productions can do there. And to give a little bit of context to you how it looks, it is pretty much an open amphitheater, and then you have the stage where backdrop is beautiful trees and just wildlife from the park, and you can hear the birds, see the sunset, and obviously it depends on the weather if you're gonna get a sunset that is beautiful colors or it's gonna be a little bit more chilly, so you need to get a jacket in the middle of June. But all of this is part of fun and part of that beautiful experience at the Regent's Park Open Air Theater. I went to see 2 shows this summer. One was Shucked and the other one was Brigadoon, and both of these productions have done so well to really use the space that they are in to elevate the set, to elevate the feel of the show, and they were so perfectly paired with the Regent's Park Open Air Theater to really deliver unforgettable experience. The capacity of this theater is about 1,200 seats, and you have a lovely outdoor area where you can have some food and chill before the show, so the whole experience is very wholesome and beautiful because you're in the nature. And I've also noticed that tickets are not that expensive if you want to go for like cheapest seats, and the best thing about this theater is that there's no bad view. I really think that wherever you sit in Regent's Park Open Air Theater, that you will have a good view of the stage just because of how the stage is positioned. So out of all these theaters that I've just talked about, I think that this is the theater that definitely has the biggest range of good seats, and also that you can find some like really affordable prices for magical shows. And the next one that I want to talk about is Barbican. This is also an off-West End theater, and it's situated near Moorgate or Liverpool Street, and this is a big brutalist building concept. Besides theater, it has also apartments, and it has an outdoor area with some fountains where you can sit and chill. But the cultural center is so important to me because it is just one of those places in London where you can just show up there and you will always find something fun to do. There are exhibitions, there are amazing bookshops, great food, and then also they put on really good theater productions. I've seen Fiddler on the Roof there, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Kiss Me Kate, A Strange Loop. Barbican also has its cinema, so it can really accommodate for a variety of things that you want to do, and just generally as a cultural institution is so dear to me. Barbican opened in 1982 and its capacity is just under 1,200 seats, but it's really interesting in the way that it's built, that the rows have a little bit of doors at the end and they automatically close before the show starts. And this is a very unique feature at this theater, and this theater really doesn't look like anything in the West End. I would say that the closest that Barbican gets to is the National Theatre in terms of the look and the feel. Barbican is also home for London Symphonic Orchestra, so you can see some great classical music concerts. There is also a beautiful garden, urban garden in Barbican that you can check out. So there are so many things to do when you come to Barbican. It's one of those places in London where I can spend hours and I will always have fun. The next theater that I want to share with you is the smallest on this list, and it can only seat about 300 people, a little bit more than that, and that is Almeida Theatre in Islington in North London. This theater is renowned for some of the most groundbreaking productions that have transferred to the West End multiple times. For example, A Streetcar Named Desire with Paul Mescal is one of those shows. At Almeida, there were so many other actors that performed, such as Daisy Edgar Jones, Saoirse Ronan, and many more. So this is the theater to keep an eye on. The tricky part with this theater is that tickets always sell out because it is so small and it is so intimate that when you have such renowned actors coming to the theater and also such a renowned productions in terms of director and the pieces that they put on there, it is really hard to get the ticket. So you need to be really switched on when it comes to buying tickets for Almeida. Otherwise, it is a beautiful theater located in a really nice neighborhood in London. You have a little cafe area in the theater where you can also have a drink or buy it before the show. As a building, Almeida Theatre opened in 1837, but initially it was a literary and scientific institute before it was converted to theater in 1970s. And while it totally has the feel of a theater at the moment, it is slightly different to the usual theaters that you can experience in London, and it's a bit more intimate, condensed, and it's definitely one of those theaters where you feel like very close to actors and experiencing their emotion that it gives you chills. Another theater that is nearby that I want to mention is Sadler's Wells. This is a dance-focused theater that is well known for contemporary dance, ballet, just generally dance performances that are taking your breath away. Over the years, Sadler's Wells has had many notable productions that have been performed around the world, and one of the most famous ones is Swan Lake by Matthew Bourne, which totally reimagined the way that this ballet is performed. It premiered at Sadler's Wells about 30 years ago, and it still is performed around the world, and it's currently on tour. So these are the things that you can experience in a place such as Sadler's Wells. The last theater that I want to talk about is Royal Opera House. This is the last theater that I put on the list, not because it's the least impressive one, but because it's the most impressive one from the way it looks. It is an amazing, beautiful building situated near Covent Garden, and it's mainly known for opera and ballet performance. So you can argue that the people who go to see shows here are a little bit more of serious theater goers. They tend to be a little bit more dressed up. It's an occasion, and when you see this stage, you can understand why, because the beautiful red velvet curtain and the seats and everything feels so royal that you just feel a little bit out of place when you're there because of how beautiful everything is. The whole building is just one that you must visit. Besides the theater, it has amazing restaurants and terrace views and this kind of whole area where you can have amazing pre-theater dinner. It is one of those places where you go when you want to be treated or you want to treat someone. It definitely has that feel, but also at the very top, so I think that's like second floor or so, there is a terrace which you can just go for a drink and have a beautiful view of Covent Garden. So these are all things that are to do with the building, but when it comes to the productions, Royal Opera House is one of the most established institutions in London. It opened in 1858, and this is the third theater on the site. Earlier houses were from 1732. It has the capacity of 2,256 people, which is probably one of the biggest theaters in London. It is the home to Royal Opera, the Royal Ballet, and there are so many amazingly talented people who you can see on stage. The Nutcracker that happens around the Christmas is one of the most famous ballets that you can experience. Last year there was Cinderella, for example. There are so many established operas that you can see, such as Tosca, which is currently on, or Madame Butterfly, which is the one that I've seen, or Nabucco as well. So all of these great opera pieces are frequently performed at the Royal Opera House. So if you're a lover of opera or of ballet, this is the place to be and to experience the power of this art form in its full glory. There you go. That is the list of my 10 must experience theaters in London. Do you have your favorite theater? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're wondering what are my favorite shows in London, which I think you can check out, then see this video where I'm talking about 5 which are still on in London.